permanence is not the end of the story. Yes, it's a big moment. And yes, it still affects my life. The way that I interact with my child and the way that I live every single moment. But you still are living and you still have so many things you can do. If you focus on what you can't do, what you lost, you're going to be really, really sad. And if you focus on just living each day with what you can do and what you have, you'll find a lot of beauty.
That is David Francisco. He gained national attention a few years ago, being on the Ellen DeGeneres Show and American Idol, sharing his story about paralysis after being hit by a car. But since then, his message and work has only gotten better. In his new single, It Is Only Permanent, he explores this idea of finding the beauty of acceptance and permanence in your life. And what happens when we stop waiting for our life to change and actually start living fully in it. This is Unconventional leader, David Francisco. How has your calling evolved over the last 10 years?
Yes, jumping right in. My calling has always felt like it's been to be in the world and not of the world. Coming from the South, I felt kind of like I was in the bubble. Like I need to actually be in the world. I feel like I'm just cloistered away, and I don't feel like that's where I'm supposed to be. So my calling has always felt like it is to be in the world and to be a light in the world. And I definitely think that the injury and all of that I went through gave me a spotlight for a bit in the real world and was very cool. And the calling hasn't changed much from that. I still feel like that's where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing. And these days, I'm just trying to live into that. If anything, I'm trying to be more bold in what I believe, trying to make more enemies in a way, because I have been almost too casual in terms of like the proselytizing and just existing and loving people where they're at. I feel like I've been a little too far this way where I could be like, well, hey, there is this guy Jesus, and really share that. So that's kind of what I'm leaning into more these days, or trying to, but I've been so against it for so long because I was so turned off by trying to like convert people that I didn't want to come across that way at all. I just want to be like someone that people love and establish trust with, and then can find out later that I'm a Christian and be like, oh, that's cool. Like, tell me more.
Yeah. The way I've always kind of viewed you and your work, and tell me if I'm incorrect in this, but it just seems like you have like the type of energy and vibe, and even like with your music, it just feels very bridge buildy. Like you're here to like connect and be a bridge, and you just have you and your wife both have just a very safe demeanor about both of you. And I think what's interesting is I was just sharing with you about, trying to get clearer on what I'm trying to say as a storyteller and a creative. Really powerful messages stand for something and have like this definiteness, I can't pronounce words, to them. But I've always been a bridge builder too, and I always have just liked people and wanted to be people's friends, and I just don't, whatever. And I can always see both sides, you know what I mean? It's like a curse. And so it's interesting thinking about kind of the message, the thing under the thing that you're trying to communicate through your art. How do you wrestle with that as being like a light in this world? And also being definite in what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it's a great point that you bring that up. I've always been very much a peacemaker, always trying to, in high school, I was friends with everybody, but I wasn't a core part of any group. So if anything, I'm still trying to lean into that definitiveness and just like being someone who says and puts themselves out there. And ironically, that's been my whole premise behind the next album I'm working on. It's going to be called
Mm.
White Knuckle Thoughts. And the whole idea,
Ooh.
yeah, isn't that fun? The whole idea is I am trying to say things that are difficult to say. I'm trying to make myself uncomfortable. And it's funny because even doing content about it has been hard for me because I'm like, I just don't feel like doing that and exposing myself, even though that's the whole point of this project. So I just put out the first single, which we'll get into later, I'm sure. It's only
Uh-huh.
permanent. But the whole project has been me trying to really say something, really put myself out there, say things I'm uncomfortable with, because I've always heard every artist ever, it feels like, says, I just really dug into my soul and found these lyrics and all that. And I've had the hardest time with lyrics in my career because it's felt like, what do I want to say? What do I even think? Maybe I don't even spend the time to really dig deep and find those things. But over the past year, and I'm rambling, but I'm just going to keep rambling.
I feel
Uh,
seen right now because these are things I deal with. So keep going.
yes, you understand.
Yeah.
So over the past year, I did a songwriting challenge, which basically really pushed me out of my comfort zone. You had to write one song a day for 30 days, which each one took me 2 to 4 hours. So it was a big commitment with a toddler at home and trying to actually like produce other people's music in the meantime and be a good husband. And so it was a challenge, but it was also so amazing. And it really unlocked songwriting for me. It made me let go of the perfectionism because you
Mm,
have to get something done. It doesn't have to be good, but it has to be done.
yeah.
And I got to explore different styles of writing. I got to try different ideas thematically, and it put me in this headspace of constantly thinking, "Oh, that would be a cool idea." It was amazing. And I wish I was still doing it because it's so fun, but then I was like, I have 78 songs because I kept going. And I need to get these finished and make an album out of them, which is also new for me because I've never been in a space of having so many songs to choose from. So
Mm.
this next album, White Knuckle Thoughts, is going to have 15 or 16 songs. And there's so many more that I could have added that might come later. But um, all that to say, I'm trying to push myself to share things I'm uncomfortable sharing because I think it's a good thing for songwriting, and it's how a lot of the best songs are written.
What is it about this season in your life where it's the right time?
Hmm. I think honestly, I've always known that that's what I should be doing. My last project was called Hypothetical Heartbreak. It was all just made up stories that I just made up. And the project before that was Lionheart, which was also it was personal, but I wouldn't say that the songs were hard to share.
Mm.
Because in that season of healing from the spinal cord injury, for those who don't know, I got hit by a car and paralyzed 10 years ago. In that season, I was basically in the spotlight of my friends and family, and then a greater, audience with
Yeah.
American Idol and the Ellen Show. Um, but I was kind of the hero. I was seen as someone who was overcoming challenges and conquering, and I felt like I almost had to live up to that. And so the songs, yes, they talk about the hardships, but it wasn't scary to share because I kind of knew that everyone was going to be on my team. Everyone
Mm.
already was on my team. So in some ways now I'm writing songs about how I get angry and songs that are more like I'm not the hero necessarily.
Yeah.
Songs that are really just a reflection of where I'm at. And
Yeah.
so that's been yeah, that's been what I'm leaning into is trying to share honest things that I'm not necessarily proud of.
Yeah. I do live storytelling like through the Moth and different like storytelling events and stuff. And one of my good friends, um, he told me, he's like, your stories are good, but you need to be a little more honest about like your dark side and like stuff you
Mm,
really deal with. You know what I'm saying? And like growing up, evangelical Christian, Southern Bible Belt girl who's nice and say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. It's this thing of, not only do you want to like flee from the evil of the world, sometimes you want to like cover up, not
Mhm.
like to glorify evil in your heart, but it's almost like it's hard to be honest about it, to be real. And then you compound that with, social media and everything looking like, oh my God, look at my life, look at how great I am, I'm popping.
Mhm.
It takes a lot. It takes a whole lot to kind of show that side of the struggle. But if we think about being a consumer, that's what we're drawn to, is the people who show the gritty. What is it called? The anti-hero in the story.
Yeah.
Like, we love that. We love it, but it's a whole different thing conceptualizing that and understanding it, and then actually like putting it into
Doing
practice.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the digging in deep part was interesting to me because I've struggled a lot with that too. I think I've just been conditioned to kind of put things down. So trying to dig in deep through some of the projects I'm working on right now, I'm so embarrassed to admit it to people all the time, but I'm like, sometimes I have a really hard time articulating what I really am trying to say and what I really feel. Because 40
Mhm.
years almost now, David, it's been, stuff down. So as a creator, how do you kind of get to those raw parts when you haven't historically shared those?
Yeah. You write songs about it, and then you force yourself to share those songs.
The how? How do you like get to
Um,
the root of that? You know what I'm saying? Was it the 78 songs like that?
yeah. Honestly, I think I've always known.
Really?
I feel like I can get surprisingly angry, which is really
I do
sad.
not believe you.
Yeah, right, right. And I've always presented myself as someone that's like chill and happy and whatever. But when I can't figure out how to fix something or do something, it really frustrates me.
Mm.
And yeah, I yell and I get really angry. Um, so I know that I just don't share it. What else? I honestly, and you know this, kids make you feel so selfish because you just want to like have a break and you want to watch a show or you want to just
Yeah.
veg. And yeah, you have to either you or your spouse is going to get the free time and every moment is all of a sudden, am I going to just relax or am I going to clean the dishes? So selfishness is another big one. Especially in this season of having a kid and almost two.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I really, it's actually pretty easy to find the things that you're not that
It's
good
just the
at.
courage to do it for you to be able to like publicly come out and be like, yo, this stuff is hard.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I don't know how much I've really even pushed into that on this project because some of it is also, it's not all introspective or it's not all like moody, sad introspective, if that makes sense. Some of it
Sure.
is uh, like one song's called Moody, and it's literally like, I'm a grown up baby. I'm always feeling some type of way. Like, yeah, I'm just really trying to explore like how am I feeling and sharing that honestly.
One of the things you share honestly, is this idea of permanence and
Mm,
acceptance of permanence. And I want to dig into that. Holla at Ya documentary was so, 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 so good.
thanks.
But tell us a little bit about that song and what you're digging into there.
Yeah. So I wrote a song called It's Only Permanent, and here's the tattoo. It's
Hmm.
only permanent,
Super
which is
cool.
hilarious because when people see it, it's like, oh, that's funny, man. It's like, yeah, mom, sorry. How are you going to
Right.
complain about this? Um, but I was actually talking with a friend over lunch one day, and I must have said at some point, yeah, it's only permanent. And I think that's such a funny phrase. And no one, I couldn't find a single tattoo that someone got that says it's only permanent online. I was looking like, does anyone use this phrase? I don't know that they do. Maybe I'm sure someone has said it, but it's not very common. It's not popular because it is kind of an oxymoron. But what I meant by that and what I still mean by the phrase "it's only permanent" is that I have had to learn to accept permanence in my life. And growing up, I always had options, in your teens and your 20s. The world is your oyster. The world
Yeah.
is your like blank canvas and you can choose to go anywhere and you don't have, a set path. And when you're in that place, and especially growing up in the season I did in the tens, of existence, I had a hard time committing to anything. I'd be in a relationship and I would be like, I think this is good. I don't know. How do you know? How do you really know?
Yeah.
And with my career, I'm like, I'll go to electrical engineering school because I don't really know what I want to do. And it'll keep my options open and I'll do music on the side. And then after college, I did music, but I didn't really, I had fully committed, I would say, but it didn't feel like, okay, this is my path.
Hmm.
Something like a tattoo felt really, scary because like that's permanent. What would I get? And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And then in 2016, getting hit by the car, paralyzed, told I would never walk again, I was all of a sudden confronted, slapped in the face with permanence. This thing has happened to you. It's going to affect the rest of your life. And you really are going to have to reconcile with permanence. Eventually, we're all going to have that moment. For me, it was getting paralyzed. But I really learned through the next months and years, and even to this day, that, you know what? Yeah, that permanent thing happened, and it isn't the end of the world. Permanence is not like the end of the story. Yes, it's a big moment, and yes, it still affects my life. The way that I interact with my child, and the way that I live every single moment is affected. But you still are living, and you still have so many things you can do. And if you focus on what you can't do, what you lost, you're going to be really, really sad. And if you focus on just living each day with what you can do and what you have, you'll find a lot of beauty. And it's cool because even with my son now, he'll say, I can't do it. And he gets really frustrated. And one of my favorite things I've taught him is we're not going to say can't. We're just going to say, this is really hard. And
Yeah.
it's so he's learning to shift his language. That was really hard. And it's so amazing to see because he's getting to learn that, yeah, it's not something you can't do. And this is a bit of a tangent, but it's something you can do. And even if it's hard, I learned to find a way in just about any situation to do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I'll link up in the show notes both the song and the documentary. Please, folks, click over there and check both of them out. I believe you touch on it in this documentary or heard it somewhere else. But, there's, and I think I'm putting words in your mouth. Tell me if I'm wrong on any of this, but like there's almost this, you go through this like crazy situation, life altering situation. Then you have all this exposure and everybody's like elevating you to be like, this inspirational story and all that. And then when that kind of fades out and you come out of that and then you're living the day to day now 10 years later, and there's not the Ellen DeGeneres show anymore, there's not American Idol, there's not that exposure, and you're there in the permanence of it and the reality of it, and you have your studio and your family and your work, and you're putting out music and songs and content, and you don't have that necessarily that kind of push from the audience, yeah, you're such an inspiration, go, 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 and you're having to really now like dig in deep and like find your own like why and your own acceptance with things. Like I feel like that is just a whole other level of growth. And I'm so mad. I always see pictures with everything. I just kind of see like this big ass spotlight with you on it. And then the spotlight's always moving to somebody else. And there you are, still
Mm,
there, the same man, the same story, the same situation without like that external push. And again, I'm probably putting some words in your mouth. You can tell me if I'm incorrect about any of that. But for me, like what you shared in this documentary is really the badass part of the story, because it's when it really shows like the internal settledness and conviction of what God's put you on this earth to do, and
mm,
another level of grit. And that makes sense to me why now you're like, I'm going to be honest in my songs, like share some stuff. You know what I mean? I
yeah.
threw up all over you. Tell me if I'm incorrect in any of that. Just maybe your experience of like, kind of like living the life after all the hype, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you are spot on. And the spotlight analogy is a great one because, yeah, it feels like the spotlight just slowly dimmed and faded and moved on. And it was really fun for a long time. Um, it it was really fun. It was also a little exhausting to be on. So it was a bit of both. I do
Yeah.
miss that excitement for sure. But these days, I also am just really honestly enjoying my life. Um, I'm just leaning into fatherhood and uh, feel like I'm making the best music I ever have. And if anything, the only frustration these days is that my music's not getting heard as much as I would want it to. And
Yeah.
that's mostly
True.
on me for not posting enough. But um, I am really just thankful. The only thing I could ask for is just continued growth and a bigger and bigger audience and more people to hear my music, just because it kind of feels this is probably shallow and I probably need to grow, but it feels like validation of like, oh, you're making good music that people want to hear.
Yeah.
And
I mean, for
and
real.
I have like some listeners, but it could always be more. And so call it immature. In 10 years, I'll probably look back and laugh and be like, oh yeah, dude, you had it all wrong. It's not about the listeners. But I am still very driven to make amazing music, best music I've ever made for myself and other people. Um, and I think that I like the chase. I like the challenge. So it's not like necessarily an unsettledness where I'm at, but it's also just like it gets me excited. When I hear someone that's way better than me, I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. I'm gonna get back in the studio because I want to
Yeah.
get better.
What have you learned about being an artist the last, let's say, 5 years? Um,
Mm,
than maybe the time we're talking about.
yeah. Well, being an artist is really putting yourself out there. I've had a couple artists that I work with blow up and have careers now. Um, and it's really all about putting yourself out there consistently.
Now, what do
Uh,
you mean by that? Like,
so
when you say that, are you talking about, like, posting on the IG, or what you mean?
yeah,
Yeah,
truly, which I
that
hate.
hurts.
I know it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts, and I'm like, should I just make content about how much I hate making content? Like, but honestly, that I'm also frustrated when I don't get the listens I want because I haven't posted. Like, if I forgot my song's coming out, how are other people gonna know?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm I feel like that's the biggest thing as an artist is making great stuff and then being brave enough to share it and post it and look silly and do all of the work that comes with promoting it.
So say, do you think it's a bravery thing of putting yourself out there? Because, like, for me, I don't know. I don't feel like it's about, because I have the same thing with, like, my podcast. I've always been that way. I love making it, and I feel like we do a really good job with having great people and great conversations. But when it
Mm.
comes to, like, promoting the podcast, I'm the exact same way. But I was just talking to Stone Stafford earlier today. He was on the show, and we were talking about the nuance between, bodies of work and having something to say and really producing something that's great, and the energy that goes into that and the intention that goes into that, and then pulling away from your energy, pulling away from making things into promoting things. Maybe this is an excuse, you can tell me, but it almost feels like your energy has to become kinda, I don't know, more shallow, like, kinda like, boop a doop a doo, Instagram,
Yeah.
here's me,
Oh,
you know what I mean? When really it's like, it takes
yeah.
all my heart and soul and energy to, like, dig in deep to be like, "What am I trying to say?" I wanna write stuff that are meaningful, that has substance to it. But,
Yeah.
by the way, I need to go to do a little selfie, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
crazy.
It's really there is I don't know what it's called. Maybe like some sort of inertia to shifting your tasks and your mind. And this
Mhm.
also happens with kids of like, how do you go from work mode to play mode with the kid? That's a there's like effort in shifting. I think
Yeah.
maybe like a mental tax or a mental load to just switch modes. And I think that same thing happens with social media and content. And even if I see social media as a means to an end, which it is, it's not like, for me, it is not the point.
Yeah.
The content is to point to the music. I love
Right.
making the music. I'm having so much fun making the music. I hate making the content, but I need to do it. And so I don't know. I think that is a good way to put it. The way that you put it, it's a little more shallow.
Right.
It's a means to an end. It's not, for me, some deep thing of like, this content is just really great. But it can't, like, I'm trying also to find ways that I can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Being silly has been pretty fun on my some of my videos at times, and doing it with a friend has been fun too. But none of it's gone viral or anything.
Right. Yet.
I don't know if it ever will. We'll
We know.
see.
We'll see.
Um, but it is hard to, like, honestly, the hardest thing is switching my head to go into content mode. Like, I hate that mode anyways. So,
Right.
like, I have to get out of creative enjoyment mode to go to content mode and try to make something. And then I also get in my head about, like, this isn't very good.
Right.
I'm not singing
Right.
that well, et cetera, et cetera. And that makes it really hard. So it's like the time commitment and the emotion, the vulnerability of putting yourself out there that
Word.
makes social media really hard.
So the last 5 years, the biggest lesson as an artist has mostly been the importance of getting your work out there, promoting.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting out there, making great stuff, and then giving it the right avenue. Um, Honestly, I feel like a lot of the songs that do well are the ones where people can somehow feel an ownership in them, even in the content of, like, they made this for me rather than they made this for themselves.
Hmm.
Um, which is kind of weird because you do make songs for yourselves. Um, but I don't know. I feel like there's some content that I see that I'm like, wow, they like made that for me to enjoy or entertain rather than they're just trying to do this for themselves.
So it'd be
I don't.
like a service mentality of like I'm doing this to serve an audience, that type of
And
thing.
maybe that's okay in the content realm. I don't think that's great in the music realm. I mean, there is a time and a place for that. I think pitch music is very much, let's serve the movie or the show or whatever we're making music for. Uh, in my own personal writing, I'm not necessarily trying to serve the audience, but I want it to be enjoyable for myself. And I think that other people will if I like it. But maybe content is more of a service
Yeah.
to the consumer.
Well, then how do folks, when you said that they find ownership in the song, what do you think causes that?
Hmm. Probably just relatability, or at least like understanding where the person is, because not every song has to be like, I'm a white man in my 30s. But like, sorry, that's an original David Francisco
Sounds
hit.
good.
You can quote me on that. But if you like can understand the experience or at least imagine the experience, I feel like that's when people are like, wow, yeah. I mean, the most viral song I ever did for someone was a song called Fat Funny Friend by Maddie Zom. And that song went crazy because all of these people were like, yeah, I also hate how I look in the mirror. It's a really sad song. Um, but yeah, that was one example. I mean, there's another song I did that probably the second best is just like a chill R&B-ish song. So it's like great for a coffee shop. So if anything, maybe that one is more of like the service, like it's perfect for a coffee shop. And I bet coffee shops
Yeah.
all over the world were playing it. I
Yeah.
don't really know. But I think if it has a lane um, where it really connects and like a clear message, that seemed to be, I'm spitballing here, but those seem to be some
Yeah.
things that make a song do well.
Well, I don't think anything like this really ever has an answer. I just love wrestling with it because I just think the creative process is so fun and magical and interesting, and it's just so neat. With It's Only Permanent, what is the core message of that in your perspective? I know you shared like your experience with permanence, But if there was like
Hmm.
a through line of like wise permanence, acceptance of that matter, what's the point with you bringing that home?
Yeah. The song is supposed to feel like a little carefree and very serious at the same time. Um, I kind of like that the music is punk, indie, kind of um, that realm, but then the lyrics go back and forth between. It's like, it's not. It's let's see. Don't mind me. It's not that serious. I'm done overthinking it. Yeah, it's only permanent. It's not that deep. It's only my whole life. So why be terrified? It's only permanent. Um, I think it's supposed to make the listener, yeah, kind of feel like, okay, yeah, I can do this, or I can do like, it's almost permission to do
Yeah.
the hard things or the permanent things.
I'm going to say this messy. Um, you grew up as a faith-based Christian person, right?
Hmm.
I'm not mistaken. I think I remember that like your family was Christian and y'all went to church. Did you even go to a Christian college or am I tripping?
Christian high school, yeah.
That's what it was. Okay. That's what I remember. Um, we were, and I don't know what denomination you grew up in and all that, but we were just really, really taught about this idea of the power of your words and having faith and healing. And we were very evangelical Christian, like with the Holy Spirit and knocking people out, man. And like,
Yeah,
people,
wild.
oh boy. Um, So I thought it was really interesting with your story because you were talking about, I believe in the documentary, about how you were seeing like a lot of progress in your healing journey and then it slowed down a lot over the last 2 years. And then you
Hmm.
have this song about permanence. And I was just curious, like as a spiritual person, faith-based person, kind of thinking through, um, and I don't, maybe you were taught different than me because there's always a different flavor of Christianity,
Yeah.
but kind of like the acceptance, the permanence of something versus like the spiritual avenue of like, or even I would say personal development, where it's just like, well, you keep fighting and for healing and full healing and growth and all of that. And there's kind of the balance between acceptance and
Yeah.
pushing for healing growth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I grew up where healing was possible, but not something that I saw ever. Um, and you always pray and believe for healing, but my experience has not been that in my own journey. And like I said, I don't think I've ever seen anyone healed
I should have brought you to
miraculously.
a tent meeting, man. I had some tent
Yeah.
meetings. Oh yeah. I don't know if they're really healed or not, but they sure seem like it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what's crazy is I'm also, and I think you would agree, like a thinker, and you know, what are the maybe psychologically stuff's going on, and you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of layers there. So I have basically landed at a place where I'm not opposed to healing. We prayed for it a lot. We had
Yeah.
the worst was someone came and prayed for me, and I wasn't being healed instantly. And this is like still in the hospital. And they're like, "Well, is there any hidden sin in your life?" And
Oh my God.
right, right. And I'm like, actually, no. Actually, I'm like, not that it's even about this at all, but I'm like doing relatively good. Like, not, and again, it's not even about that.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, that was tough. I mean, not really. I just kind of, okay, well, she believes that. I don't believe that, and that's water off a duck's back. But um, yeah, I never believed that God was gonna heal me. Uh, I was open to it, like I said, but I was like, it probably won't happen. And what I do believe though is that God's in the business of redemption. And what that means to me is he can use the terrible things that happen on earth for his glory and our good. So I would say the closest thing I've had to divine intervention in my life was one when I heard a voice, didn't hear, but like the thought popped in my head to go get the helmet 3 days before I was paralyzed on the bicycle. And if I hadn't been wearing that, I probably wouldn't have survived. And so that was the closest. And then second closest to like divine intervention would have been my wife and I reconnecting. And like I had not been to California, but maybe once or twice in my life. And then all of a sudden, after this spinal cord injury, I got invited twice out to LA. And the only person I knew was this girl, Christy, who I had met one time, 1 month before the crash. And we connected, and she's just incredible. And we dated for 7 months, long distance. And then I proposed. And it's like, it was just so clear through the whole experience.
Mm.
So those are two moments that I would say God really like blessed me, saved me and then blessed me. Um, and now I speak at high schools about distracted driving, and I don't think it would be as powerful if I was just like fully healed. I think seeing me kind of struggle to walk and just the challenges I still face in some way are an example and make it more powerful of a message, finding purpose in the suffering. So yeah, it didn't change anything for me necessarily because I didn't ever believe, oh, God's evil if he doesn't heal me. I was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, I think bad things happen on earth and God can use the bad things for a lot of good.
You sound like you had some good mentors or parents or something to have such a freaking steady head on your shoulders.
I had a huge support network in that season of
Yeah.
healing for sure.
Yeah. To get spiritual and woo, because we got a few more minutes left, and why not? Because I'm just curious your thoughts on this. Um, do you read Rick Rubin's book, Creative Act?
Yeah, I did. Audiobook.
I love
Yes.
that book so much.
You
I
just
love that
show
book.
up. You just show
Oh,
up. And that's
you
what that
just
songwriting challenge was. You're just showing up and you're just seeing what
mm.
happens.
I just think it's so interesting how like, this idea that of kind of tuning yourself in to hear. Because you just mentioned the thing about the helmet and your wife and all that, as, religious folks, whatever, we filter that through the message of God. And sometimes people who are creative think it's the muse or whatever. But it's like this fine tuning of us being able to hear and listen to either a
Mm.
life saving thing that something's trying to whisper to you or a freaking awesome song that you just write in like 30 minutes. It's like so interesting to me that. The task of a human, yes, is to produce and go and do and make and show up on Instagram and all this stuff. And also, there's that other layer of like tuning that instrument to be able to like receive and hear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's it's a totally different I love it. And like I said, the songwriting challenge really I was like I was just it felt like a good workout routine. Like I was just every day I was going to the gym, showing up, pumping weights, and building muscles, building the muscle of listening, building the muscle of opening up creatively. And that creative state is amazing. I That's why I say I miss it, is because when I'm not doing it every day that way, it's harder to get into the creative state,
The flow.
and to just show up into the flow and to get good at listening. That's really
Yeah.
what it is. But that's so cool. How do you implement that in your work?
I'm religious about my morning time.
Yeah.
My girls know do not mess with mama when she has her journal out and her coffee. I'll tell you what. So there's that element. I've also been trying to do a lot better about not judging people and cutting them out of my life and leaning in a little bit more to things that I'm not naturally drawn to, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. So here's like, talk about being honest here. Sometimes I'll be like in a conversation and I'm just like, just I'm talking about like chit chatty small things like the neighborhood mamas or something. I hope they don't listen to
Mhm.
this. But, just stuff that I wouldn't naturally be drawn to and like my
Yeah.
own judgment towards things that are different than me. I'm like, oh, that's boring or I'm not into that or blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Be like, no, Heather, there's a challenge here for you to lean in a little bit more and get curious. Because I've learned that from comedians. I think comedians are so good at this. If you ever
Mm.
talk to a comedian, they just stare at you. They're just looking for a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're just curious people. And I'm like, instead of being judgmental about what's for me and what's not for me, can I look at different people and situations with more open hands and an open heart of saying, like, what can I learn here? You know?
Mm. That's really cool.